Hello, everyone. I'm Seth Seward of the Miami University Alumni Association. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this session of Alumni Weekend, connecting Miamians all across the country for fun and engaging programming and conversations and celebrating you, our alumni. Our session today is a spotlight of the Center of Student Diversity and Inclusion. And today we have Nloh Masango-Dibo, the Director of CSDI, and alumna Dasha Harris, an Associate Director of CSDI. Let's go ahead and get started with the presentation.
Absolutely. So thank you, Seth. Nloh Masango-Dibo, he, him pronouns. I'm the director for the CSDI, like Seth mentioned. Pleasure to be here with y'all today. I am a UC grad, so for my undergrad and my master's, just down the street. But my dad is a Miami alum from the 80s, so I guess this is in the blood, and it's just a pleasure to share this time and space with y'all today, and hoping to get some good engagement and questions answered. And I'll turn it over to Dasha for her to introduce herself.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Dasha Harris. I am an alum of the university in 2012. I graduated, and so we will forgive Law for being a graduate of UC today. I'm excited to be here with you all virtually. For those of you who have the pleasure of being in a space that doesn't have cicadas, please be lucky you're not here today, because they are really, really, really bad today. So excited to talk to you today, and let's get the presentation started.
Perfect. All right, and so we have a little presentation, PowerPoint for you all, but as questions arise, and I know Seth will probably say it again, please go ahead and pop questions into the chat as we are, boom, there it is, the banner right there, as we're talking, because we do want to answer any and all of your questions as we go through. But just to kind of get an overview, those are our pictures there. So I'll just leave those so you can see our pictures for a second. But kind of this year in review of how we came in looking. And so I actually started this director role in September, and then Dasha started, November? And so the staff as a whole is pretty new. And of course, that means we started in the pandemic. And so just coming in, our outlook of what we were going to do, we were dealing with COVID. We were in the aftermath of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and then the election, right? And we all, felt the effects of that election up until even after they said it. And so our students were carrying all of that, and us knowing that our students were facing all these things and just the baggage that they were coming in with, that's how we kind of set our plans for how we were going to do this year. And of course, that looked very different because there wasn't that same foot traffic around campus. Folks are walking around with masks. They don't know what rooms or what spaces they're allowed to go in, and they don't know how many of them are supposed to be in these spaces. So a lot to navigate. And so we have a whole, class of students who had their first year last year who maybe don't necessarily know how to navigate campus. So thinking about all that is how we kind of came up with how we were going to strategize and implement our initiatives for the year.
So as Law mentioned, we do have an entire new staff. Our last, seasoned staff member, Rhonda, just retired within the past week or so. And so we are now an entire new staff, ready to figure out what is the best way to run our center for our students and what our students need today. Students come and change. And when you were a student here at Miami, times were different, things were different. The students now are different and they have different needs. And so we try to assess, every couple of years, what is it that our students need and what type of support can we provide to them out of our center. And so with that, we came up with 3 focus areas, not only for our center, but also in response to kind of the things that were going on in the country, including the pandemic, including George Floyd, including the election, all of the things that we've gone through this past year and a half. And so our first focus area is community engagement and experience. So meeting the students where they are, providing programming that allows them to feel home when they're at Miami University. That we only have them for 4 years, but this is the first time some students leave their home. And so we want them to come and we want them to feel as though Miami University is their home, and we want them to be welcome. And with that being said, a lot of that falls into our office with the diversity and inclusion piece, because we are at a PWI. And so we want our students to feel welcome, even though there's a lot of people in our university that may not look like them. And so we try to create experiences where they feel like home and they have a little piece of home. And we're providing people and staff members for them to connect with so that they can resonate with the campus. And so our next initiative is campus collaborations. Nloh made it a point when he started as a director to create connections that were already in place when we started, and also new connections as well. And so we try to touch a little piece of campus everywhere, in every department, in every office, so that we have some sort of collaboration and understand what other departments are doing in the realm of diversity and inclusion, but also understanding that it's not just our work in the Center for Student Diversity and Inclusion. And so making sure that other parts of campus, they're doing their part in the inclusion journey as well. And so, meeting staff members, talking with the students, and figuring out how we can best collaborate and move forward to best support our students. And then lastly, activism. Our students are really interested in being activists on campus during their time here, especially with what's gone on in the past year and a half. And so we've made it a point to, in our roles, figure out how we can best support them as professional staff members and just as people in general. Like, how can we best support the students' activism journey while they're here at Miami, and let them know that we stand behind them, Black Lives Matter, and just affirming their existence here on campus in general. And so those are our 3 focus areas. Those are the focus areas that we have focused on since we've started as a new staff, but also what we will be focusing on over the next year.
That mute button's vicious. All right, so year in review for you, just to kind of give you a high level of the type of things that we did this year. And so, and this is not everything, of course. There are a lot of, more intimate interactions, smaller programs that we did to reach students. But just as a summary, some of the things we did. One, for MLK Day. And so I hope a lot of you got a chance to tune in. We had the great Nikki Giovanni join us via Zoom. And so, of course, our meetings, our initiatives, our programs this year were held over Zoom. And so a lot of the students are tired of their laptops and computer screens, but we were still trying to find a way to make it interactive and create an experience over our virtual landscape, because that's what we had to use, right? Especially for safety. So being able to bring students on board. And then we also had alumni on there. So Joy joined us. And just got to talk with Nikki for an hour about activism back in her day, about what we can do today, about what students and how we can use the academy and these tools and these resources that we have at the university to make that change we want. So that conversation was very powerful. She's powerful. And so just an honor to even be in that space and get to have those type of conversations. And then next, we got the versus battle. I'll let Dasha talk about that a little bit.
So for those of you who are not familiar with Versus, Versus it's like an Instagram page that started through the pandemic. And what they've done is they've allowed artists to come together and kind of go song for song with their music journal, if you will. And so you'll have 2 artists go head to head. One will play a song, another one will play a song, and then the audience will kind of determine who had the best hits over the year. It basically turned out to be just all fun. It's like a family affair where we just play our songs, we reminisce. And so that's something that I know we've enjoyed over the pandemic, watching different artists play all of their hits. And so the students thought it would be a nice idea to do a versus Miami versus UC. And so our BSAA came together and collaborated with UC's United Black Student Association. And it was during Black History Month, and they just closed out Black History Month with this fun celebration. But they also shared facts about their organizations and about their institutions and just Black History Month in general. But it was virtual. And this is, I think, was like one of the first times that we were actually having students in our center for something. And so they all wore their masks. They came in and they were virtual, and they just kind of went song for song. And we had DJs and things like that. And so it was just a really fun, something fun to close out Black History Month, something not so serious, as they've just been sitting in their Zoom screens and doing their work all semester and all fall. And so that was something that our students really enjoyed.
Absolutely. And also, just so y'all are aware of just kind of the restrictions that we had with the pandemic, we couldn't have more than 10 students in a room. Or 10 people, right? So that could be students, staff, but it had to be less than 10. I think maybe classrooms maybe had some different requirements, but for us in like the student affairs space, it was 10. And so with those type of limitations, everything you do is going to be virtual. And so having something like this versus battle, where we know UC is also going through the same thing, being able to pull both groups, both Black student associations, and say, why don't we do something together? And kind of just, not necessarily, but kind of still maintain that rivalry even in the pandemic. That was very special. And this was the first time a lot of those students were able to get together in a kind of facilitated space. Now, if they were getting together on their own, that's them. They were sneaking around, pandemic rules, right? But this was like the first regulated thing that our students could do. So they really appreciated that. And they whooped UC too. So even though that's my alma mater, I'll be for real. They got it.
Okay, so another program that we implemented during the pandemic, we wanted to figure out a way we could recognize the women on our campus and some of the amazing things that they were doing. And so March was International Women's History Month. And so we decided to create a Women of Excellence like award recognition banquet. And so in the future, the banquet will be in person and we'll have food and speakers and performances. And we want it to be like a big production so that we can celebrate the women on our campus and the great things that they're doing. But this year we obviously had to make it virtual, but it turned out to be an amazing program, and we were able to recognize and celebrate the influential women on our campus. And so we opened up nominations, and this was a partnership with our sororities on campus, our NPHC sororities, as well as our Pan-Hellenic sororities. And with this partnership, we were able to celebrate not only students, but staff and faculty as well. And so you see a picture there of the, 7 women that we recognize this year. And, every year it may be a different number of women. It'll just depend on the pool, but we had a lot of nominations this year. It was a really good pool. And if nothing else, it was really nice to see what our students and staff and faculty members on campus were doing to impact the Miami community.
And also, it's just important to note, like this like initiative kind of rose out of a lot of different just groups, organizations, especially students. They were asking questions, what can we do, right? And so we were almost inundated with emails from around the campus of, I want to get active. We want to do something, but we don't know what that looks like. And so having a Women of Excellence program and recognizing the contributions of the women on campus, that came out of, Pan-Hellenic reaching out and saying, hey, we realize there's a gap here, but how can we help be part of that solution? And so that energy is very present on campus right now. And we do appreciate that. And we're taking full advantage of it, right? All right. And then 2020 vision, a journey of reflection and transformation. And so this was our student art show, art festival rather. And it was just a response to 2020. It took place again at the end of spring. Can you hear me and see me? Good. Cool. And so this event was a student. Can you still hear me? Can you still hear?
You keep freezing for me. I don't know if. And he's gone. Okay, so I'll continue this until he pops back on. And so the idea behind this art festival and this art show was for students to create pieces of art that reflected their journey in 2020, specifically with the pandemic. And so the students were able to submit like an application to be chosen to be displayed in our center. And then we displayed all of the art. And so we would have students and staff members come through our center and just view all of the art that we had in our center. We had some really, really good pieces. Again, it's just amazing to see how talented our students are and some of the things that they were able to come up with. So some students decided to do painting. Some students did like sculptures and things of that nature. And so we had it on display in our center for, I think, about 2 or 3 weeks. And people were just able to kind of come through and see the art pieces. And then students were able to come back and pick up those art pieces. And then we also put a call out for the students who didn't come back to get their art and say, hey, if you don't want it, we will happily display it in our center. So hopefully we'll have some pieces that are left over from that we can still have in our center and display. And it just shows kind of everyone's different perspective and viewpoint on the pandemic and how it affected them, not only as a student, but again, as a person in general. So Nloh, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for holding that down. Hey, and what's kind of wild is like, I could hear you and I'm like, oh, it's just shut down on me. Okay, so sorry about that. I'm sure Dasha explained this very well, but just student response piece to 2020 and giving students an outlet to just say how they felt, what was on their mind, and express it, especially the artists, especially those maybe who are maybe more introverted and may not be talking about it, but they can show it in this other way. So we got a lot of great pieces. Some of them are still in the center that we can hang up. And so, again, just very excited. Oop, let me share the slides, though.
I was mentioning that when we emailed the students and told them to come get their pieces, that some still haven't come back. So I'm like, I kind of hope they don't, so we can keep them in the center.
Oh yeah, it's ours. It's ours for sure. I don't know if they're gonna get that back, but no, we definitely loved having that in the center.
So another program that we were able to do this semester, this was a fun one. We wanted to do a spotlight on women in arts and media. And so things might have been a little different when you were students here, but I don't think we mentioned that in our center, we have the Center for Student Diversity and Inclusion, which was previously the ODA, Office of Diversity. And we also have the LGBTQ services as well as women's initiatives. And so when we're creating this program, we're trying to touch every piece of our center that are representative of our students. And so the Women of Excellence Award, that's the women's initiative. And then we wanted to also do a spotlight on women in arts and media. And so this spotlight was meant to, again, have a program during Women's History Month and celebrate women in a job or something that isn't really talked about a lot at a university, a career that we're not always like, well, let's talk about the comedians, let's talk about the artists, like everything's always focused on either business majors or engineers, whatever. So we wanted to kind of celebrate those women who were in the arts and media and kind of talk about what those challenges look like and celebrate those women. And so we were able to have Amanda Seals join us for that. And if anyone follows her on social media, she's extremely outspoken. She's really affirming when it comes to activism and, understanding our role in society. And we talked about, how we're professionals and students at a PWI with her. And it was just a really great conversation. And we talked a lot and focused a lot on what it means to be a woman in the industry, but also what it means to be a woman of color in the industry. And so hopefully we had students tuning in who were in those majors who may want to go into that field and kind of affirm them and let them know, these are the challenges, but also let's celebrate you. You bring a lot to this industry. And so that was the point of that program. And it was really successful. And we had a really good conversation with Amanda.
And so again, just looking ahead to next year, some of our goals, initiatives, and how we really plan to continue what we've been building on and what was built on previous to us getting there. And so one is we have newly renovated space. And so our office within Armstrong Student Center recently went through renovations, but we also have a 3rd floor space within the Student Center. And if you haven't been, please stop by. We are open throughout the week, every day during the summer, open from 7:30 to 4:30. and you can check out those spaces. But we have a third floor space as well that is also kind of like an open lounge where students can stop in. It's open as long as the Armstrong Student Center is open, but you got TVs, you have couches, you have table space to do certain things. So definitely a lot of just thinking about what we're going to do with that space and how we're going to make it look and how we can best utilize that for programming, as well as building community and then starting new things. And so speaking of new things, one of those things that we're looking at is a call to the men of Miami. And so this is an initiative where we are talking about sexual assault, interpersonal violence, dating violence, but we're doing it in a group that honestly can use. We don't want to preach to the choir, basically. And so we're bringing in IFC, we're bringing in the NPAC fraternities, and we'll meet bi-weekly throughout the school year. And each organization has to send one delegate, at least one delegate. Now you can send more, but everybody's obligated to one. And in that, we are, again, men in a room holding men accountable for sexual assault, for domestic violence, sharing our experiences, talking about education, and whether that's masculinity, whether that's how to get consent or what consent even means, because a lot of those things are just maybe terms that our students hear, but maybe not necessarily can process or define. And so having regular scheduled meetings in this space that feels like a safe space where we can be honest, where we can share and we can ask those questions, I think is so important, especially just for the overall culture at Miami and on college campuses that revolves around sexual assault. And of course, Greek life having so much influence, we thought this would be a perfect place to start.
So to continue to inform you about what we're doing, looking ahead into the next school year, the Nellie Craig Peer Education Program, it was an idea that was birthed out of our office, but also with the DEI Student Life Action Team. And so we have an action team where it's myself and the Dean of Students, Kimberly Moore. We co-chair this action team where we're trying to figure out how we can best provide diversity, equity, inclusion, support, and education within our division on campus. And one of our assistant directors, Tyra, she works in our office. She had this idea about this peer education program where we could train students on how to be peer educators within diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so they would facilitate workshops for student organizations, resident halls, and first year experience classes, which we've seen an uptick of requests for that over the past year and a half, obviously, and we're excited about people wanting to have these conversations. You know, when George Floyd's murder happened, a lot of students, I think we were in a pandemic, it was blatantly video recorded, and a lot of students just was like, this is unacceptable and we need to talk about this and what can I do? And so we've had an uptick in requests for like presentations, discussions, programs around diversity, equity, inclusion. And because our office is so small, we have to be creative and figure out how we can get this education out to the rest of the campus without overexerting ourselves. And so Tyra came up with this really great idea to train students on how to be peer educators, not only to help with the load, but also information is best coming from a peer. If you're able to understand anything, you know, you don't want someone much older than you preaching at you, you will be able to understand it a lot better from a peer. And so that was the idea behind this program. And we're in the works of getting funding for it so we can pay our peer leaders to facilitate these workshops and have these conversations with our students around this important topic. And then another initiative is the Graduate School Mentoring Initiative. And we're going to partner with the Graduate School and the Graduate Students of Color Association. And we want to start kind of a mentoring initiatives for graduate students and undergraduate students of color for our undergrads who are interested in attending graduate school. So they can be partnered up with someone and talk to them about their experience, everything from applying to grad school to what it's like to be in grad school, to the different kinds of programs that are out there, and, you know, helping with their application with that. And so we wanted to create just something for our students to be able to come to our center and say, we're not coming to CSDI just to hang out, but we're also taking something away from this experience while we're here at Miami. And so that was the idea behind a lot of the visions and focus areas that we're creative, is that we wanted, and Nloh came with this vision when he started the director, like, I want the students to leave the Center for Student Diversity and Inclusion and say, I was able to take this away, or I'm able to bring this into my career path, or I'm able to do this, and not just, I'm hanging out in here, I'm studying, I'm doing homework. So we want to be able to provide these resources for our students and be a resource for them and give them the tools that they need to be successful when they graduate.
Absolutely. And I mean, just to add to that, I don't know about y'all who, went on to get your master's and PhDs, but when I was an undergrad, I thought about grad school, but I didn't seriously look into it until it was time. And that can be too late for a lot of folks. So I think it's just important that we can provide those resources to connect our students who know they may even be thinking about taking that next step with somebody to say, here's what it looks like. Also, we were hearing from our grad students on campus that they didn't maybe necessarily feel as connected, especially our graduate students of color. Maybe they were on campus and they were just going to classes and maybe hanging out within their cohorts, but that connection to campus piece may have been missing because Miami is mainly an undergraduate focused institution. And so this is a way to also give the grad students a chance to mentor, a chance to reach back into the community and reach back into, that undergrad, which does tend to stick with a lot of us as far as those experiences we had. And so definitely looking towards that collaboration. Made at Miami, that is not going anywhere. And so that was actually virtual this past year, of course, because of the pandemic. And we are looking forward to bringing students back on campus for that this year. Main thing that we should just mention with MADE is that it'll still be a pre-arrival program where students will come before school starts and get a chance to meet other students, meet some staff and faculty, and connect. But we also want that to go through the whole year. And so we want to create these consistent touch points with students, especially knowing that we have a whole first year of students that were in school this year who maybe didn't get that traditional experience of being immersed in the campus. And so programs like MADE and being able to have touch points throughout the year are going to be so important, especially for the populations that we serve. And so making sure that MADE can go a whole year where your mentors and you will meet regularly in groups, you'll have activities, and it also gives us a chance to space some things out. And so we can really be intentional about the community building for the pre-arrival program. And then as the school year goes, we can bring in those different offices that we know maybe need to have their own session, right? And so maybe one stop in financial aid and comes and talks about scholarships one week, and then the next week you'll hear about study abroad, but we can segment those things instead of trying to force feed the students all at one time in these 3 days or 2 days, however many that they come for the pre-arrival program. And so just looking to be very intentional in how we connect with the students. And then just the staff updates. And so just so you can actually see on paper who is here. And so obviously it's more than me and Dasha who are working on these things. And so very grateful for the input and every staff member. We're a small but mighty team. And so everybody brings heat at different times. And I stand by that. And so the chart is there for you to read. I won't read through everything, but definitely shout out to just the staff as a whole. We do have a new associate director for LGBTQ initiatives. So I definitely would shout out Dr. April Callis, who just started, 2 weeks ago? So May 24th. And so definitely welcome. And then our administrative assistant, Rhonda Jackson, who was admin for the Women's Center, and then CSDI. So however you know, Rhonda's been here and she retired in May as well. And so I definitely thank you for her years of service and the impact that she made on the center. And I think it's time for questions. And I know we got some that have come in. So I'll invite Seth back and we can start talking.
All right. So such a wonderful presentation. So thank you for all that. So we did have some questions that come in. So the first one I should ask is, how can alumni be involved and help with the programming with CSDI?
Sure. And so right now, and the pandemic changed a lot for us in the sense that there was no longer this thought of, we did it last year, so we're going to do it this year, right? We had to change everything, the way we did it, the way we outreach, and our students changed in that process as well. And so all that to say, we're thinking of new initiatives every day and thinking of new ways to connect the students, especially as the climate and the types of students and the things that our students engage with change. And so while we're going back in person, this new virtual reality is still an option for us to connect to folks who maybe can't get back to campus. And so definitely for alums who do want to get back, and whether that's to take a tour virtually, so we are working on a virtual tour of the space, but also just to interact with students virtually, there are opportunities to do that. And so we'll open up those avenues. And then again, career is such a big thing. And I know because from Seth Post, all y'all are winning. So just bringing y'all back to even get some FaceTime with students and talk about your career journey, talk about your own campus journey and connect. I think it's so important for students to know, like, they're not the first ones to walk this journey, right? They're actually standing on shoulders of giants. And so I would say virtual opportunities are there to connect, and you can email myself or Dasha to just say, hey, I'm open. And once we figure out, what you do, where your passions are, we will find work for you. So I would just be very careful about asking us, what can you do? Because we will find something for you. Of course, money, I'm not going to leave here and say, like, we don't need money. We do have gift funds that you can donate to. And that just helps the operation and everything that we do. And so especially when it comes to looking towards booking more talent, looking towards even a homecoming experience, which is something that we've talked about in the office. Of course, money and finances is going to be an area. And so donating to our gift funds is also a way to help. But if you are able to come back to campus, then definitely, of course, we can also use that interaction. And so I would say at any level that you're willing to participate in, we can find an area for you to interact with us. Dasha, I don't know if you want to add anything.
I believe you covered everything, but I will say that Seth and I are in conversations about how to create an experience for the Black alumni during homecoming. And so homecoming this year is October 15th and 16th, I believe, the weekend of that. And so we're looking to maybe do like a mixture on Friday, and Seth will have like a tailgating experience. So if you're able to come back to Oxford and if you're comfortable with that, let's connect. We want to know about your time here. We want to answer questions that you have. So we want to connect with you. So even if it means just coming to Oxford to hang out for a weekend, that's great. That's what we like to see.
Absolutely. I'm used to calling off work for UC homecoming, so I want that for Miami. I'm used to getting missing. So yes.
All right. So we did get a pre-submitted question I want to make sure I ask for Dasha's sorority sister, London Portia Reed, class of 2007. She said, what initiatives are there this year to address the Black Lives Matter movement and education about microaggressions? So you already might have alluded already in some of the programs. If you want to answer this specifically for your sorority sister.
Yeah. Hey, Portia, if you're watching, K-Sora. But I think we were able to address this question during our presentation, all of the programs and initiatives that we've started this year, to the programming around activism, to creating educational opportunities for our students, creating engagement opportunities for our students of color, our Black students to be in the office, to hold space for them, but also creating educational opportunities for our students who want to learn more about how they can be a better ally. And so we are working hard, and we work in collaboration with our Assistant Vice President for Diversity and Inclusion. I'm so sorry, my background is loud. We work in collaboration with our Assistant Vice President for Diversity and Inclusion for the university. So Law has worked very closely with the interim, and now we have a new person in that role. And so we're making sure that it's not only on CSDI to do this education and to create these initiatives, but also on the entire university as a whole.
Definitely. And I think just, taking a stratified approach to it. And so understanding that we plan to support and attack, Black Lives Matter, systematic oppression at various levels. Not that we can solve it or solve these issues, but we know that there's work that, valuable work we can do to just kind of help push that culture forward, right? And so the peer educators is definitely one. Taking students who are already passionate about this work, passionate about these movements, and actually putting money in their pocket to go and connect with other students and train them, right? So we train the students, and then they go forward and train the campus community. I think that's a great way to look at it. And then just making sure we're connecting around campus so that the work and responsibility doesn't fall back on the center primarily. And so making sure that offices and departments around campus feel equipped to just help in their own way, whatever their skills are. And so all that's very important.
Okay, kind of a follow up on that. Speak on the what's going on with the racial issues going on in our country. Recent came into Martin King Jr., Reverend Martin King Jr. family said that he wanted people to be judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. But what are ways, in your programming that you do to work with students, current and prospective students, to develop character alongside their academic education?
You broke up a little bit.
Okay.
And so I think the question, if you can read the last part of the question again.
What work do you do in your programming to help develop character alongside their education that they're receiving at Miami?
Gotcha. And so a lot of it is challenge and support, of course, but it's through the opportunities and engagements that we're able to provide in collaboration with campus. And so I guess some initiatives and things that we're thinking about that were maybe not on the presentation that may get at, I think the question is asking kind of how do we holistically develop our students alongside just the Miami curriculum. We're working with the Career Exploration Center as well as FSB to put forth almost like an M-Roads, right? A cohort of students who we get to work with and kind of put more intensive training on, internship training on, that they can go and get an internship with a partner company that has dedicated a spot to this program. And so, for example, if I got a Bengals shirt, so if the Bengals agree to be part of this program, they will hold an internship spot for one of our students during the summer next year. And we get to work with these students in a cohort and make sure that they have interview training, make sure they have resume workshops, and make sure they're able to speak to their diverse experience on campus and translate that into the job field, right? And so as Miami is very career focused, I think that's an important way that we show that we are aligned with the university mission, but also this is for underrepresented students. So this cohort would be comprised of your underrepresented students on campus. And so things like that, where we can bring in other folks and still align with the university mission. And again, Miami is a very personal, relational campus. And so making sure that we can give that personalized, individualized attention to these students as we try to mold them and send them out is very big. So that's going to be for second year students coming up in the fall as well. And so I think it's initiatives like that. Dasha, I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
I think that was good. Going back to what you said about challenge and support, we do have a lot of students who come in and talk about their experience as a student of color or a Black student on a PWI's campus. And so understanding at what point in that conversation that we're able to support them and walk them through it, and at what point maybe we can recommend counseling services or, another office that might be able to help their journey. Everyone is going through this journey differently. And so I think it's our job to kind of understand every student as they come in as an individual and see how we can best support them during that outside of the classroom experience.
And our student leadership is very strong. So even if I look at Diversity Affairs Council and especially that E-Board, that just very strong, passionate students who they won't hesitate to let you know when something is wrong, and they're very passionate and connected to this work. When I look at Spectrum, right, they are leaders on campus, especially when it comes to LGBTQ plus initiatives. They work hand in hand with that associate director to plan programs for legislation when it comes to ASG, especially that affects LGBTQ plus initiatives. Spectrum is right there with them. And so just being able to support various student groups is also very, very important.
Okay, so we got questions coming in. So some of them deal with the presentation that folks the programs that you mentioned. So one person asked, what training programs do you use to train the peer facilitators? Or will you use?
Will use, yes. And so for the peer facilitators, that's going to be a curriculum that we'll come up with as a staff, and also knowing that we have a lot of knowledge on campus, and so pulling in the perspectives of, your Dr. Denise's, your Dr. Coates, right, for example, and coming up with that curriculum. So that is being built, but we will train those facilitators. Also looking at our Wilkes Leadership Institute. And so they're right next door to us, and they also have been able to develop an activism guide. And so, again, we are not the keepers of diversity on campus. We are leaders in it. And so we do then look for how do these resources that we have at this institution, how do they also pour into these initiatives? And so for the training, we will train them. But as far as the presenters, as far as that curriculum, that will be built as a coalition.
Wonderful. And I believe you mentioned about MADE earlier. What does the acronym MADE stand for?
Honestly, I may have to look that up because you call it MADE so much that Dasha, you got it just off top of head? Let me look.
I went through it as a student, but I don't think I ever knew what the acronym stood for.
Yeah, honestly, even at Miami, they'll just be like, "Oh, MADE," and you just know what it is.
Right. So, did you do MADE, Seth?
I think I might have done MADE when I showed up.
Yeah.
A long time ago, 2006.
And so MADE stands for Mentoring, Achievement, Diversity, and Excellence. Okay. MADE program, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for answering that question.
Hey, who asked that? I need to go.
It was Maggie from the class of 1984.
Okay, thanks for that.
I think you already kind of alluded this already, but how can folks be advocates or mentors? What is the best way to do so? And I have something to ad-lib from the alumni side, if you guys want to answer that.
Sure, same answer that we used before, but probably some contact information will be helpful for those who do want to get involved. And I'm sure Seth could share that out as far as I know.
Yes, so I want to also add that we do have an online program called Miami Alumni Connect, which is an online resource similar to LinkedIn, but specifically for Miami alumni who want to mentor students that can connect with them as well. So maybe we can maybe put up that information, at least the website address up for you to log onto that for students to find you for mentorship. Okay. Okay, so this question deals with the campus climate. This is alumnus Ryan Anderson, class 2007. He was a student employee at CSD. Well, CSDI, it was ODA, Office of Diversity Affairs at that time, between 2015 and 2007. So he says he's excited to see the work that's happening and planned for the next academic year. He wants to know, can you describe the overall campus climate as it deals with racism, homophobia, transphobia, things of that nature? Has there been an improvement since the increase of conversation around the issues?
This is an extremely weird year to assess because everything is virtual. So it's really been hard to kind of feel where our students are as it relates to those issues. Because like, even when the George Floyd murder happened, our students would have been outside picketing and, been outside and being the activists that they are. But with COVID restrictions, like, things weren't able to happen. And so we've been trying to reach out and hold space for our students to kind of see where everyone is. Now, a lot of the things that have been occurring as it relates to those issues that you mentioned will all happen on social media. So if you follow the Miami University page, follow our student life page, and just kind of get a feel for where students are. Like, our students will challenge, and they'll kind of say how they feel on there. They want support for the LGBTQ community. They want support for the Black community, and they'll tell us that any day, every day. They'll tell us they want support. And so I guess like a feel for the climate is things are happening. We are doing things as a university, but the students want more and they want action. They just don't want talk. And so I think if you ask any student, what is the university doing? They'll probably say they're not doing enough. And so are we ever doing enough? Will we ever do enough? We're going to continue to create our programs and create these initiatives until our students feel comfortable with saying Miami is home and Miami is a great place to go to school. And so we're just in this constant daily battle of trying to figure out where to hit our students, where to best support them, how to best get this programming to them in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of a cicada swamp. No, I'm kidding. That has nothing to do with it. But it's just been a weird year. Like, I really can't explain the feeling of trying to get this education out to our students virtually. Like, it's just been so hard. Do you have anything to add to that, Law?
Also, the energy is just high around diversity, equity, and inclusion right now, just nationally, and so on our campus as well. And so our students are very much in a prove it mode, right? So it's yeah, okay, you said it sounds good, but you're gonna have to show me. And if it's always been like that, it's definitely like that right now. And I think anywhere from top down knows that it's a show me year coming up, especially next year with us moving back to in person more and more. It's going to be a show me year. And so if I had to sum up the climate, it's prove it, right? Y'all have talked. You said you have these pots of money to go here and there. You're gonna have to show me. And so, yeah, looking forward to being part of that show. Right?
Also, I want to point out. Sorry, Seth. I also want to mention that I think as the years go on, and now that we're in 2021, more of our students feel comfortable calling out racism. It gets better and better each year. And so the more students that don't feel comfortable in their own racism, I think the better our community will feel, because if you're able to go uptown without being called an N-word, then we're doing good that night. And so we need to educate our students on how not to be a bystander, how to call it out, how to not let their friends quote unquote joke about, being racist. And that's where those educational components come in. It's like, we're trying to make our students of color and our Black students feel welcome, but we're also trying to educate the masses on how to do that, because a lot of these students didn't go to high school with diverse student population. And so it's just a mix of trying to figure out where we can best have an impact to the student pockets that need it.
Wonderful. And so we have various alums who are watching, and we have another question from Bob Faithful from the class of 1970, and he is a Alpha fraternity member. I'm not sure if he's DU or the Delta Epsilon chapter. Anyways, he said, have you considered, or you already have like a library built recommended list for like contemporary books that could be identified with collaboration, for folks on DEI subjects, things of that nature. And he mentioned alumnus Dr. Ronald Crutcher, who's retiring as president of Richmond University. He wrote a book about his experiences as a Black professional in the education field. So is there like a library there? Are you looking to build a library? And he's also interested in maybe possibly sharing his own experiences as well with his different family members as well.
Absolutely. So he could absolutely get in contact with us, and we could figure out best way to get him integrated into what we're doing, and so he could share the story, especially with our students. We do have a library within the CSDI of various materials that students can check out for free. As far as is there a list? There's honestly a couple lists circulating just around campus with DEI things that you can read and get involved with, but also podcasts you can listen to because that's where our students are at, right? So electronic and different maybe documentaries you can watch. And so there is there are a couple lists like that are just circulating through the university, not that we have necessarily built. Definitely something that we can put on which is a great idea that we can put on our list for next year, as just having those materials on deck to share with students. But yeah, so the question was, do we have a library, right? Or
yes. And I guess he definitely said in the message that he had some experiences as well that he experienced as a student at Miami, and then maybe we can help maybe share that perspective with students, maybe something of that nature. So maybe that's something we can work on. And also, I believe he has some relatives who are one of the founders of the Zeta Mu chapter, Delta Sigma Theta sorority, incorporated here at Miami. So that's what he was saying.
Would love to connect. I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Beta chapter from UC, so we do have a little bit of room for Alpha, so it's cool. But would love to connect and open up those relationships.
Okay.
We're also, I'm sorry, Seth. We're also in the process of updating our website to create a space for students and staff and alumni to come on and see what services we offer as far as like educational materials. And one of those things will be to have like I'm starting this diversity and inclusion journey. What can I just read just to get started? And so we will have a list going of good books, and we would love to include stuff from alum and maybe even include experience from alum, like read this experience of alum of 78 or, and I'm excited to know that there are graduates on here who graduated, then I'm not calling you old or anything, but like, that's amazing.
Yes. So last year was Bob's 50th anniversary of graduating from Miami. Since its 51st class anniversary. Thank you, Bob, for watching, and others. So I'll just end it with this question here. So how do you, from your own experiences, being in college and going to PWI, how do you use those experiences to support students as they come to you on an interpersonal level?
I can start. I was a terrible student, not like behavior wise, but grade wise, academics. And I was awful for a good number of years, right? And so I came in pre-med because when you're African parents send you to school, you're going to be a doctor. And I did not live a doctor lifestyle. So I was in parties from Thursday through Sunday. They kicked me out the College of Allied Health. They was like, bro, you tripping? Like, you think you really about to do this? And so I had a lot of figuring out to do about just not only what it takes to study, but what it takes to like navigate college. And so I like to think that I use those experiences every time I'm talking to students, because I've been on academic probation and I've been on the dean's list. And right now I'm in the PhD program for educational leadership at Miami. And so knowing that I come from that wide variety of experiences, I'm able to honestly talk very authentically to students. And so also allowing them to be themselves, especially when they're, I guess, in my space, if they come in the office or they come in the center, because I always try to be myself around them. So I do a lot of connections on social media with students. So I'm not necessarily afraid to engage on that platform, but also being very honest with them and just kind of sharing what my own experiences are, and hopefully something can relate. And so I don't think it's anything unheard of or extraordinary, but more so just very intentional as far as offering advice. And that's for every level of student. The students who are in trouble, sometimes our Office of Community Standards, which are the ones who do the hearings, right, when students get in trouble, they may send me a student and say, I don't think our office is and the disciplinary procedures are best for this situation. Can you talk to them? Right. And maybe that student went to the high school down the street from my high school. Right. So there's that instant connection, and we can start having those real conversations. And that's been very effective overall. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And so having gone to Miami, I really try when I'm speaking to my students not to, back in my day, them to death. Just because I have learned as a professional that students really do change and evolve over time. And so things that happened when I was a student are happening differently now for my students that I'm advising and that are here on campus today. And so we like to my students always ask, like, well, how was it when you were here? Or how was this when you were here? So we exchange experiences, but I don't try to make them have the experience that I had, because, you know, I want everyone to have their own experience, and I want them to go through the Miami journey, how they're best able to, and just help them navigate what it means to be at a PWI and to be a student of color, is extremely important to me. And so just letting them know that I'm a support, and giving them the support and resources that they need to be successful. But also helping them know that I understand what you're going through, because I also went here as a student. But it's really interesting talking to students now and seeing how different, you know, their perspective, even their reactions, you know, to different things are than when I was a student. It's been an interesting experience for me as a professional, but really good and helpful in helping students navigate the college experience. So.
Okay. And we did just get a last question. I did just come in. I don't know if we'll quickly address this one. What are you doing for Native American students, considering Miami has a rich history with that population?
Sure. And so since we've gotten there, we've met with Kara Strauss, who is the director for the Miami Center and Miami Relations. And so that when it comes to that relationship, there are talks about programs, but just figuring out what is best within the need. COVID is a very weird year, so I don't necessarily have that historical knowledge of what that relationship has been like, but definitely looking to what we can do as students are coming back to campus in the fall, but working closely with her office on that. But no formal programs or initiatives yet, but that is in the works.
Yeah, and I also want to add that Kara Strauss did a presentation on the Miami Center, which has been established for about a year or so, that supports students, from the Miami tribe. So you can definitely look back at that program and see what programs they offer for those students that come in to the university. That being said, thank you so much, Nloh and Dasha, for the presentation, answering these questions that have come in from our alumni and audience. So thank you again for doing such a wonderful job today with us. Thank you for joining us.
Thank y'all for having us.
And
thank y'all for asking questions.
And so also want to add that our next session is a spotlight on the Western program, which takes place at 2 p.m. Please remember that there are unique URLs for each session, so please refer to your viewing link emails, which are sent before for both 24 hours, 2 hours before the presentation. On behalf of the Miami University Alumni Association, thank you for joining us, and love and honor.